Welcome to Conversations with Zapheria. Take a seat on the virtual couch with us as we start to dive into a conversation with my beloved, with Mike. Welcome to the Conversations with Zapheria couch.
Oh, yeah. Do I get analysed psychologically?
You get psychologically analysed here. That's exactly what is happening in front of the world.
Beautiful. Let's hit it.
That's what we're doing.
Let's hit it.
So our intention with this podcast is to just share a little bit about our relationship. I feel like there's some areas that our relationship possibly is different to many, and so might be of interest in different ways that they work, and also just different ways that we choose to communicate with one another and what we're finding is working for us. So this podcast was inspired by a conversation that was had last night out by the pool of some things that I needed to admit that were uncomfortable. And now I'm here to share them all with you.
So comfortable. So comfortable. It is.
It is a comfortable couch.
Comfy conversations.
It's a comfy conversation.
This is a challenge in relationship, isn't it? How to have those difficult conversations and get to a point of comfort within them. You know, it's going into the uncomfortable, is it out of the comfort zone, you know. And in our relationship in the early stages, we made a commitment that our relationship would serve each of us becoming better people. And sometimes we go long periods where maybe that's not happening, and then we do something about it, and even little things do make a very big difference for making us better people, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that commitment and that agreement to each other was very early on as well. That would have been within the first weeks of exploring, deciding to relate together and how that was going to look. And there was that commitment of this is for being better people, but also for growth and for soul. We were both in a place where it was all about soul growth, soul evolution. And so that commitment really was like, if I want to be with you, then I want you to be able to follow your soul's path and to follow your calling and to be true to yourself all of the time, as much as I know that that's what you want from me as well.
And we get companionship in that, which I think is really important in life. I certainly, you know, I think a lot of people can probably agree with this. There's this temptation to do it myself, do it my own way, you know. And I can only get so much from that. But there's something about sharing personal development, you know.
Woo!
Wow.
That's when it gets edgy.
Yeah.
So I feel like I might just share a little bit about what happened yesterday and what happened last night and how we managed that, because I think that that's a nice thing for other people to get to experience. So we're actually on set right now filming. We've hired an Airbnb for a few days to film a lot of different content, and Mike very lovingly comes with me and sets up all of the tech equipment. We have 2 cameras and lights and sound and all the things that he lovingly sets up for me. And so yesterday I was filming something, and he made just a simple comment at the end of one of them that perhaps I could refilm it, and why. And I didn't handle that very well. I went into a little bit of an emotional place about it and a little bit of a meltdown, a little bit of a diva meltdown. Let's call it a diva meltdown because that's a nice way to call it.
Sounds like a cool sort of ice cream to have.
Yeah.
It's got bejangles on it and sparkly things.
So
a diva meltdown.
I had a diva meltdown.
Nice.
And something happened during that diva meltdown that impacted me really deeply. And I decided that I needed to speak into that with Mike, and then I needed to admit that to him. And I feel like I can feel the tears coming at wanting to talk about it. But there was a moment where I told him what had upset me, and I didn't think that he fully got it, and I kept going. And I was definitely still going and heightening it and making it worse and making it worse. And what I felt in me, was when I saw his face change, because he was just kind of smiling and yeah. And I saw it hit him, and I saw that in some way I had hurt him, and I felt something inside of me go, that's better. And I wanted to vomit at seeing that part of myself. I was incredibly embarrassed at seeing that part of myself. I was mortified. And I think I had 2 choices with that. I think one of those choices was, I have 3 choices. One is ignore that even happened. that's not how I roll with anything. Anyone who knows me knows that's not how I roll. The second is I could have just gone, okay, cool. Like I see that pattern. I'm going to work with that pattern, either with myself or with a practitioner. And I had definitely made that decision. And I thought, and the third and most difficult way, most confronting way that I could deal with that would be to come to Mike and tell him what I had seen in myself and what I had witnessed and how that made me feel, and that I was embarrassed about that, and that I was making a commitment to take that to a practitioner that I see weekly at the moment, a kinesiologist, that I was making a commitment that the next time I go and see her, that is the thing that I'm going to take to her. And I wanted him to know that. Now, I also apologized, but I think even beyond the apology was I needed to own what had happened, and I needed to share that with you. And I feel like also the way that you handled that, I think just was a very beautiful example of how we communicate, which is as open and loving, as honest as we can. We are human, and we still definitely have moments.
But what I loved was, boom, ownership, you know? I like to simplify things down sometimes because it's just too complex. It's like you're either owning or you're projecting, you know? And for her to own that piece gave me room to own my side of that piece. Whether it be owning the impact on me, what I made it mean, all that sort of stuff. Because in my head, I was running a story as well, which in effect is just kind of like projecting, you know? But by actually speaking about it gives us both an opportunity to own our parts of it and start to name it, you know? And so we started going to this process of, you know, so what would you call yourself when you're being like that? Or is there a quality that it is, or is there an archetype? What do we call this thing? What is it? You know, which
nasty little girl. I can't even remember what I called her.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It was nasty something.
Yeah. So you can see we're getting there, but what we found is that when we can name the thing and give it a little bit of a personality, then it gets easier to notice and speak about further on, and then it doesn't have to be it's a part of me. We can speak to that part rather than that is you, even though it's a part of you, it is you. And that gives us the power to actually start to reflect on these things and grow. And we're not there yet. We haven't really formalised its name, but just like we've got a new puppy, we're still figuring out its name. You know, we're
new parents.
Yeah, we're new parents to a new puppy. So it can take a little while to name something and to get to know its qualities. So we're very much in the inquiry stage about that. And I could go into an inquiry about how I reacted to it and so on like that, which I think it will be the next piece for us. Best working on one person at a time.
One at a time is great. One at a time is great. And I feel like I kind of feel like I probably should have pre-framed or shared a little bit that before sharing that, I didn't kind of share it in the moment. I didn't share it straight away. I didn't share it while Mike was busy trying to do tech stuff. I waited. I didn't share it while we were trying to eat dinner. I waited until he was in a relaxed state and I was in a relaxed state, and I knew that he was in a listening state. So I knew that it was a good time to be able to share it. And probably if I wasn't sure, I would have asked, like, I've got something important I would like to share with you right now. Are you in a position where you're able to listen to me?
You did ask, yeah.
Did I? Oh, cool. I did ask. I'm so amazing. I did stuff without even remembering. But I know that for me, I was being aware of what was your state before I brought that in, because I think if I hadn't have been aware of your state, it might not have landed in the best possible way. And also being aware of where the tone that I was in, because I feel like if I was in a different tone, if I was in the tone that I had been in when I was having my diva meltdown, it might not have landed quite the same.
Yeah, it might have been a lower vibration narrative, which tends to lead to lower vibration conversation. We'll wait till the spirits are a bit higher, and then we're actually able to deal it in a more light-hearted way, and to actually integrate things better. And also something in there that I think is important is that when she asked me, I checked in with myself, am I in the right place? And it was a very quick yes. But I've been in places where people have asked me, is this the right time, or didn't ask me. And I've checked in and gone, now is not the right time. And I've been like, look, not now. And the maturity to understand that not now doesn't mean not ever. So like timing is an important thing with this sort of thing, and to be able to have the maturity, especially if I'm triggered and activated and I'm trying to have the conversation and not now, to not take that personally and go, okay, cool, not now, later, you know.
Yeah, and I feel, I mean, for us, we're really fortunate in the fact that we don't really argue. We don't have many really intense moments. That was one yesterday, and we do tend to quite quickly approach whatever that was about, so that like my intention was I wanted to own, and I also want to learn, and I want to be able to grow from that. And I think that anytime we do have those moments, those clashes, which we're obviously going to have, you know, living together, we've been together for 2.5 years now. We've been living in a different country that is neither of our own countries for 2 years now. That was never planned, never expected, during a pandemic, during like lots of uncertainty. So we've obviously moved through some pretty intense ups and downs throughout our relationship, and very, very quickly. We were not together for long before we were kind of thrown into this situation. So what I do really respect about us is that anytime anything does clash, we do approach it quite quickly, and both of us with that respect for one another to take ownership as best as we can for what happened, whilst also being human in the moment.
And we're just speaking about this a moment ago. It's like the fact that these clashes happen are very good in a lot of ways. Like at the beginning I said, sometimes we'll go long periods without necessarily growing as a couple because the clashes haven't been happening. Sometimes it actually takes that flashpoint to be like, there's a thing here. Sometimes finding those dead zones can be really hard to spot. And another aspect can be when something really good happens, do we actually sit down and break that down and go, wow, what's really good about that? And there's a realization that's going to be more a part of a practice for us as well. It's like, that was really good. What was really good about that? You know, can we give that a name? You know, and the more we start to actually have a map of the different parts in the relationships and how they work together and so on, the more we can start to rearrange that and turn it into what we want and use it to actually become better people. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I feel like too there's a couple of other things I'd love to bring in that I think is fun to share. Like, we're living in Bali at the moment, if you can't kind of already tell from our environment, but we're living in Bali, and it kind of looks a little bit like maybe we're in Italy or Tuscany or something, but we are living in Bali. And so there are obviously some amazing things about that, and there are some challenging things about that. And right from the start of arriving here, being a couple who live together that are not married is very deeply frowned upon here, and we are not married. However, we do call each other husband and wife. Like, it kind of started as a funny thing when we got here. Like, people would be like, that's my husband, just to make it easier. But it really has evolved a lot more from that, I feel. So we call each other husband and wife. We are not married. But one of the things that I really enjoy is there is the depth of commitment to each other as if we were married. Like, my personal experience is that I have been married once before, and it wasn't the most amazing experience for me, and I never really thought that it felt fully in alignment for me to just have to have the piece of paper and change my name. That's kind of my own journey. So I don't think it's really a high, and it's not really been a high value.
Well, I'm definitely not the piece of paper person. I never bothered getting a degree at university because I've kind of looked at my friends who got better marks than me sometimes, but then I'd talk to them a year later about some of the cool stuff we'd learned, and they're like, I don't remember any of that stuff. I just went for the marks. And I'm like, well, I got the information. I'd rather have that. So I was not so fussed about the proof. I was fussed about the experience and the usefulness of it. So, maybe the experience and the usefulness of getting married might come up at some point, but, and I'm open to it, but it's not important.
It's not a high drive or a high value for either of us. I don't think either of us are against it, but it's not a high value. But what I've noticed in that is that we are choosing to live with that level of commitment to one another. We are creating a life together, and there's a different type of how do I even explain it? In no way do either of us, I guess I can't speak for you, but I do not feel like I am bound and tied and expected to be anything other than who I am in any given moment for this relationship. And I feel like that's something that's been really profound for me. Like I say, I can't speak.
Look, I just really like you, and I love
I like you too.
You just like, I don't know, life's better with you around, you know, and it's like, why would I be somewhere else? You know, it's just, yeah, and it keeps getting better.
It does. Not that only after 2.5 years marriage would be an important thing, but I feel like just bringing that in of just another way that things are different. Like, we have that energy of husband and wife, but that's not necessarily where we're headed. And I feel like that also leads me into wanting to share a little bit about how our agreements or the way our relationship is structured is maybe different to some. Like, I think there's perhaps many people see like there's monogamous as one way and open relating or polyamory is the other way. I feel like they're kind of the two camps that you see, right? And a lot of our community and a lot of our friends are more in the open relating, polyamorous relating style than they are in the monogamous. We have friends in both, but I feel like they're the two camps. And the reason I wanted to share a little bit more about where we sit in that is because I think sometimes when people are relating, then we're moving out of the monogamous cage, but if I move out of the monogamous cage, I have to be in the polyamorous cage. And I'm like, why do we even have to be in either of those cages? Maybe I just don't want to even live in any of those spaces. Maybe I want to live in the in-between. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit about how you perceive the way.
I kind of perceive it as rather than two cages. It's like, let's just get rid of the cage.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, we're a couple and we get on really well. And if someone walks past who's really sexy, I could say, is he sexy? And she'd be like, yeah, he's sexy. And she's sexy. It's like, cool. Ability to appreciate people. If Z wanted to hang out with a good friend of hers and the friend was male, I'd be like, great, go spend time with your friend. It's good. You know, if I want to hang out with some females, then she's kind of like, great, you're hanging out with friends. I love it. You know, that's the most basic level.
Yeah, I think so. And it's like, I guess when we first started relating, we kind of called it open because we didn't really know what else to call it. It's like, oh, well, I guess we're open relating. However, in the 2.5 years, neither of us have chosen to be intimate with anybody else. Or I guess intimate is a different word. So maybe neither of us have chosen to be sexual with anybody else. We were just talking about the word intimacy.
Yeah.
Before.
The first workshop that I ever ran was a workshop on intimacy, and I was a bit young at the time, and there were some older, more experienced facilitators there, and they're like, oh, we're not so sure that you can hold this one. This is a big one to hold, and they had some trauma. And I said, oh, I think I can do this. So we all gathered around, and I just asked people, what different areas of your life have you experienced intimacy, and what was that like? And it came things like, cooking with my mum was a very intimate thing. For another one, it was, having a fight. One guy got into a fight with another guy, and he said it was the most intimate thing that he'd ever done, and there was nothing sexual about it. And one person brought up something sexual, and that can be intimacy. And another person talked about just meditating on his own, and it was a profoundly intimate thing within themselves, So it's like, wow, there's all these different levels of intimacy, from violence and to love making, to hanging out with friends. It's like, okay, so it's as if there's a thread that runs through, and it's all intimacy. And at one point, sex passed over that. So it's like, they're different things. And so I love intimacy. I love that I can meet a new person and make friends with them and hang out and get to know them. Do I want to sleep with them? Probably not. Back when I was single, sometimes relationships would form because it was just a natural continuation of a good conversation, and that happened. Am I looking for that at this stage in my life? I'm not. It's not a priority. Will it be? Will I meet someone who that might be? Maybe. And there's the room for me to actually come and talk to Z and have her not freak out.
Yeah. And I think that that's the key for us, is there's a decision to be able to be open in our communication with one another, which therefore allows us to have intimacy with other people. And you kind of spoke about, like, if I wanted to, I could go hang out with a friend and you encourage it. Well, you have encouraged it. We've been in the same house before with me catching up with one of my very closest male friends. And, you know, Mike said, why don't you two just go and have some alone time and catch up, and left and shut the bedroom door and left the two of us in there laying on the bed cuddled up. And a lot of people wouldn't allow that because they would freak out. Whereas I feel like for us, that's fine, that's okay. And there is this openness to have a conversation if ever there was an attraction to someone else. It's not like, ooh, that would be bad. You're not allowed to talk about that, and therefore now because it's bad, you might go and have an affair on me because whatever. Or if you come and tell me that you've met someone, I'm not going to hit the roof. And we've had those conversations as well, of you coming home saying, yeah, like I was away and I had dinner with a girl. Like, it was a really nice dinner. I think she was really interested in me. Well, actually, you knew she was interested in you. And it's like, that's okay.
My parents were very clever. I just didn't really rebel because there was nothing to rebel against. They were just like, oh, go out, you're going out to a party, cool. Do you want us to drop you there? You know, and they basically said there's only one rule. If you're going to stay the night, just call us so that we know. And if ever you need a ride for any reason, just call us, we'll pick you up. It's all part of the deal. There was nothing to rebel against. It's like, yeah, have some booze if you want, whatever. Like, you know, it's like, come talk to us if anything gets weird. And it's just like, there was nothing to rebel against. But I don't know, that whole thing of you shalt not, you know, whatever, it can create it. It can create it. It's like, well, okay, if I can't do it, then I'll bottle it down until boom, it happens, you know. Whereas when it's like, have a sip of beer. Okay, cool. Well, that alcohol thing's maybe not such a big deal. I don't need
really
to become an alcoholic. It's one less thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's the same in a relationship. The fact that there is the openness kind of just means that it hasn't really come up.
There hasn't been the need.
There hasn't been the need. It's super, super interesting. And I think the reason I really wanted to share that is because what I think the more vocal relationships that we see out in the world that are perhaps on the more open end, more open and possibly more active, or actively seeking, actively searching, which I think that that's one way of relating, and I'm super open to that way of relating as well. But there is others, there's the in-between, there's this, it's not just monogamy or polyamory, there is such a piece in between that doesn't really need a label, that when we soften out of the monogamous bounds, we can create more communication and more openness for honest communication. Because I know for me, I would rather, for example, that time when you came in and said, yeah, like I met this girl during the day and we hung out during the day and then we had dinner, I would rather that conversation come to me and you'd be able to say, yeah, like I hung out with this girl and I had dinner with her.
She knew I had.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know I know stuff. It's hard to date someone who knows stuff, huh? I did know that no one had told me I knew. But hence why I would rather that conversation. Like, we can compare. I've had that experience before of where I know, and I've had many, many years ago, probably 15 years ago, maybe more, and the partner came home and lied to me. And I said, well, did you spend time with a girl when you were away? And they said, no. I didn't spend time with any girls when I was away, and I found out 6 months later that they had shared a bed with a girl the whole time that they were away. I would have preferred, and apparently nothing happened, apparently, but who knows, can I trust even that? So I actually left, because what I would have preferred was, actually, I ran into like one of my dearest friends when I was away. She was my best friend for so many years. She didn't have anywhere to stay, which is apparently what the story was. She didn't have anywhere to stay, so she stayed with me in my bed. And I would have gone, oh, cool, what else happened? Instead of, did you spend any time with a girl? No, I didn't. Well, now I'm going to leave you. Probably should have just told me the truth to start with instead of lying.
And this is an interesting thing. I think this is the key to relationships in a lot of ways. This is my thought on it. There's the relationship. Okay, cool. Which one? Is it the relationship that I'm having?
Yeah.
Is it the relationship that she's having? Is it the relationship that I think I'm having? Is it the relationship that she thinks she's having? Is it the relationship that I say I'm having? Is it the relationship that she says they're? They're all different things, and to some extent, the relationship, the context of the relationship is, what have we agreed on?
Yeah.
And I think that many relationships out there are based on what each person assumes the relationship is. Just two assumptions with very little overlap of actual discussion. And sometimes that overlap might be very confusing, So it's like coming to the point of, and is it fixed in that? Is there room for whatever? So then perhaps just the everyday, the actual relationship that we're having might be breaking that without meaning to.
Yes.
So expectations, the only thing that ever let me down in life was my expectations. But when we can actually agree on what it is, just like we're trying to figure out what these little parts are and give them names and words and actually give some what is this thing? Because, we are compatible to whatever extent and incompatible to whatever extent. But that keeps shifting. I'm getting older, you're getting older, work changes, environment, you're getting younger, and the relationship's going to shift. So it's shifting sands. Does that mean that we have to go off of what we once said our relationship is, or do we need to keep updating it and refreshing it? And that happens by
new operating system, update, new operating system, update.
Yeah, so if the relationship is like a fire, what sort of fire do you want to have? Do you want a little smouldering embers, or do you want a big roaring fire? And to keep the fire roaring, you've got to keep throwing fresh wood on it. And to me, I think that is, if the fire is a living thing, what does it need? Well, it needs wood in the right proportion, the right size. And what is wood? Wood is just the experiences, the communication, the act of being in a relationship together. We look at it and we figure out what that is, And in some relationship, wood might be, raucous sex with 1,000 people. Well, that feels like hard work.
I was going to say that's a lot of people, but anyway, if that was someone's fire for their relationship, then so be it.
Good luck. For others, it just might mean some good laughter.
Definitely for us, it's laughter.
Some good laughter, and all that sweaty stuff would be sort of like that's kind of putting the fire out, Too much moisture there.
I think you were talking about sweaty stuff because I don't even know how I managed this, but I booked an Airbnb with no air conditioning to do filming in, and we've got these big lights, and it is a sweltering day. So you probably have seen me, those who are watching this as a video rather than on the actual podcast, probably seen me like wiping my upper lip. I've nicknamed my upper lip Niagara because in this room, tell you what.
I call your upper lip Viagra.
I love it. I call it Niagara, you call it Viagra. It works. Either way it works. But
We just put some wood on the fire.
We did just put some wood on the fire, right? That's a little view into what.
But a little bit of smoulderingness could be kind of cool, but you know, it's nice to have a bit of flame going on.
Yeah. Yeah, you think that that's important to know what is the wood for your relationship, like because it might be different for each of you as well. Like I think for us, it's very much laughter and touch as well. If there's no touch, then things are not as great in the relationship as when there is touch, and definitely laughter for us is like the wood on the fire. And I think that's a communication piece that we had where we each discussed like what's a value for us and what makes us feel safer in this relationship, more comfortable in this relationship, and they were some of the things. So I feel like that's an important piece for all couples in all types of relationships, is what is the wood for you? Like what does keep the relationship burning for you, which might be different to your partner, and where's the crossover for both of you?
And I think of the 5 love languages. You know, I thought that was a classic read, that one. It's real simple. I'll just tell it to you now so you don't need to read the book. Basically, everyone's got 5. They say that there's 5 love languages. I don't know, I figured out at least 7, but 5 love languages. They said, you know, what is it? Quality time, acts of service, gifts, touch, and the other one.
That was helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other one. Clearly the other one is not one of your top 5. Not one of your top, I
think it's appreciation, you know, appreciation. And when I read that book, to me it meant, okay, well, if I'm healthy, then all 5 will be strong, both giving and receiving. And so I started doing the work to become good at giving and receiving well in all 5. For me, it was really gifts that needed the most, so I'm better at receiving gifts, and I'm still getting there with giving gifts.
Those on the camera can see, those listening cannot see my face.
But here I am as an act of service, setting up the lights and putting everything together.
Very
and
good
that's
acts of service.
Huge one for me. Quality time, love it, love it, love it. Touch, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, giving and receiving, and appreciation. You know. You
sometimes get the words happening.
Yeah. Sometimes they happen. Sometimes I just kind of show it.
So that's okay. You've got like 3 really strong out of the 5, 4 reasonable, and you've got one that's...
There's some work to do. You know.
Which is hilarious because gifts is one of them. But anyway, that just takes me straight back to like, what was it? Oh my gosh, we have to tell... Okay, we're going to tell this story as like a rap story.
Okay,
I think we've gone for long enough, but we're going to tell the Hawaii.
It was her birthday, and we were flying from Hawaii to LA, and it was very stressful because you had to go through the whole thing and the customs and hot day and so on like that. And she's giving me all these hints, and I don't really get hints. It's like, oh, I always wanted a flower lei like that. You know, I'm like, yeah, good. Yeah, but we got to get to our plane. And I raced us to our plane. And then we had time that I could go back and get the thing. And
I also said, every time I fly, I really, really like to drink champagne when I fly. It makes flying really special for me. And also, always on my birthday, I love to have champagne. It makes my birthday really special to me. Yeah. Anyway.
That's nice, dear.
Luckily, when we made it to LA and we got to the house that we were staying with very good friends, they opened the door with champagne. So, you know.
Off the hook.
But it was quite hilarious. I cried the whole way from Hawaii to LA with my head facing out the window, and I cried the whole way because it just really had not been... I think you might have said happy birthday when we woke up, but that was it.
So now I know that birthdays are actually an important thing for her. And I made sure that the next couple of birthdays were pretty awesome.
You did pretty well on the 3rd birthday we were together because you didn't actually have to do anything. Where we were staying did everything. And it ended up being...
I organised
Of course he organised it. Ended up being like the best birthday I think I've ever had. He did organise some pretty amazing stuff, I must say. So, you know, the last birthday made up for Hawaii.
So feedback loops. If you don't know that you're making a mistake, you just keep making a mistake, and but an open relationship is one where we can be open and say, hey, this isn't working for me, and the conversation can be had. So to us, that feels like what it is that we can be open in our communication about anything, and that we can get those feedback loops and change. So now I know champagne on birthday. And other things. Yeah. And she knows some of mine, so
we do.
Yeah. And and at one stage I spoke up about a need for a particular sort of support, and since then you've just been fantastic in supporting me and having faith in me, and that came from going out of my comfort zone and saying, here's the thing, and sometimes it doesn't come out cleanly, but then we can go, okay, let's go away, let's find a place and a time when we can do this in a clean way, and that's where we grow. Yeah,
exactly. That's the thing, committed to each other's growth.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice place for us to wrap our chat. Might need to go and get in the swimming pool or something, because
I think so.
Wow, it's really, really warm.
I'm melting.
Completely melted. Anyone who's on the camera is able to see that we've both just completely melted into, I don't even know it, a puddle here. So those of you who are listening to it on the normal podcast situation will just have to imagine that we're sitting on a very beautiful big brown plush lounge in a really beautiful place in Bali, and that we both are, let's be honest, sweating like a lot. Excellent. I think that's it.
So sexy.
So sexy. Awesome. Thank you for joining us on the virtual couch, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Very cushy virtual couch. I love it.
Sinking down, melting, dying, I know.
Let's celebrate with some bubbly water.